Hey there, survivors! How's it going? I'm your host, Douglas here at Dromboy Productions, bringing you another Friday the 13th Collector's video. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a very cool piece of Friday the 13th history and also a very cool piece of mask history in general. This is going to be a very informative video with a lot of different history, and we're going to be delving into a lot of different stuff, and I'll be telling you a good bit about this piece and how I acquired it. So I hope you guys enjoy this video and strap in. I don't know how long this one will be, but there is a lot to cover. In the past year or so, I've been able to collect quite a few pieces from the Friday the 13th franchise that were either directly out of the screen use mold, or were recasts, have some kind of lineage to production, and those have all been very rare and very cool pieces, many of which were limited to like 15, 13, 20 pieces made worldwide. Today we're going to be taking a look at one of the rarest and one of the oldest pieces with movie lineage. This is the story of the very first licensed Jason Voorhees mask, which also did have lineage to the movie molds. As many of you Jason fanatics are sure to know, Friday the 13th Part 2 was released in 1981 and forever changed that franchise, and many even say the horror genre entirely, by bringing a full-grown version of Jason Voorhees into the film world. However, I'm sure many of you Jason fans did not know that we actually did receive our very first licensed version of the killer in mask form that very same year. This is something that I don't see discussed much with younger mask collectors, but for vintage mask collectors who have been around for a while, this was a pretty awesome piece, and Sam McCain is a very, very well-known name in the mask world. For those of you who don't know, Sam did work for Don Post Studios and Distortions Unlimited, as well as having his own mask line, and he has produced many different pieces, including some movie mold pieces and lineage pieces, for decades. Sam has unfortunately passed away. I never knew the man, never spoke to him, never ordered a mask directly from him. However, I have definitely seen his work, and it seems pretty highly regarded amongst many mask collectors. I do happen to have one of the Jason Goes to Hell hood recasts directly off of one of the screen use props done by him and Billy Kirkus. I'm sure many of you watching this have seen that video before, but Sam did put that out. He put out a Part 6, the Bradley version of the mask. He put out the coffin dummy. There were other things that were meant to be put out, but this is another piece that was produced way back in 1981 using some of Carl Fullerton's original makeup, and the rest was sculpted by Sam. He produced the Inbred. I could be wrong on this history, but I think Sam also did produce the first licensed Michael Myers mask that was available to the public, so for you Myers fans, Sam really does have a lot of history in the slasher genre, but even just as a mask artist, because he worked at Distortions, Don Post, and made so many original different pieces, he's pretty well known. Most of you Myers fans, though, probably know him for his original art piece, which was a very, very cool concept of a burned Michael Myers where he almost looks like a zombie. I have an ad here for the original Part 2 Jason that Sam put out, as well as the Michael Myers, and this was being announced through the Fantasy Masters line of masks that was being produced by the THS companies. I'm not super knowledgeable on THS companies, but I have heard of Sam's stuff and the Fantasy Masters line because of Sam's stuff, but I guess this was a line of masks produced through another company, and it shows that each individual mask is licensed, one through Falcon International Pictures, the other through Paramount, of course. As far as the write-ups for them, for Jason it says, "Kill, kill, kill, Jason always did what he knew best. Developed from Carl Fullerton's appliances from his original sculpture." And that's pretty much it. It's a kind of low quality picture here, but I do have another write-up that says, another member of the Fantasy Masters series of Friday the 13th's Part 2 Supernatural Slasher, Jason, developed from Carl Fullerton's makeup appliances used in the 1981 film. The Jason mask was painted in standard flesh tones with a dislocated blue eye, brown hair, and epoxy drool. Some copies also featured beer stubble glued on. The brown hair is not super accurate, and as far as the rest of the sculpture outside of the appliances that Carl provided Sam or he acquired, however, it's not super accurate to Warrington Gillette's likeness. So it's not a great sculpture in that way, but as far as the lineage, it is very, very cool that it does have that lineage. The dark brown hair, not super accurate. Most of these did also have the one good eye cut out so that you could wear it properly, and I didn't see very many of these with the beard stubble at all, which, as far as how many, I think there's only 3 or 4 of these known to exist in the entire hobby, making it literally probably the rarest Jason mask in existence, especially as far as officially licensed, having the movie mold lineage. It seems that out of all the different hockey masks and other busts and makeup appliances that have been released in limited edition numbers, this still seems to be much more rare, because obviously if there's only 3 or 4 known to exist versus 10, 15, 13, 20, however many it may be, this is by far one of the rarest masks in the Jason hobby. So what I'm about to show you is something absolutely incredibly amazing, and I'm super stoked to own it. However, there have been quite a few issues with this whole situation, and I'll explain as we go along. Alright, we are back, and I think we're ready to go ahead and take a look at the mask itself. And as I believe I mentioned earlier, there were a few issues with this transaction, not really on behalf of the seller too much, but it was just kind of miscommunication, and it's nothing terrible. It's still a really cool piece. Very happy to still have it. Alright, so here we have it. This is a Friday the 13th Part 2 Jason Voorhees by Horror Sanctum Studios, aka Sam McCain. This version in particular, though, was not painted or haired by Sam himself. This copy was painted and haired by legendary mask collector and artists, I guess you could say, David Lady and Laura Lady. Now, for you vintage mask collectors and people who have been in the hobby for quite a while, those names definitely ring a bell. David and Laura are very well known in the collecting world, and they have been around for years and years as well. Pretty much since the 70s, 80s, and, you know, going on forward, they're still around collecting and also producing very nice pieces, doing repaints of certain things, offering their originals, and they have some very rich history in the mask world as artists, whether it be for Laura doing hair work or David doing paint work. And beyond mask work, if you've never heard of Dr. Lady's YouTube channel, it is Mask Wizard, and he has tons and tons of amazing content. He is one of the most knowledgeable collectors in the entire hobby. He's released books, he's released DVDs on masks, just cataloging all these different masks and their history. He is definitely a true mask historian, and is one of the very few out there who has really had his hands in all facets of the mask world, between making, painting, you know, offering these pieces to people, collecting them, just getting to know so many different people. I'm sure for most of you watching, you already know who Dr. Lady is, but if you don't, genuinely go check out his channel, and I am extremely stoked to have this piece, because not only is this a very insanely rare Jason mask, but this is a piece that was painted by Dr. Lady and haired by Laura. So this kind of has 4 legendary artists who worked on it, being Sam, Laura, David, and Carl Fullerton's original makeup. So really cool piece here, and I want to show it to you guys, but I also do have to be careful. And I also don't think I mentioned this, but I had mentioned there were a couple of different issues with this transaction, and all of it pretty much came down to just lack of communication, and this was one of them. So I was initially messaging David in regards to another movie mold Jason piece that he used to have, inquiring about it. He told me unfortunately it was long gone, and I asked about another. That piece was also long gone. So I did ask about this one, and shockingly he did still have it, and he was kind of wary on selling it because of how rare it is and the fact that Sam is gone, but he seemed like he was willing to part with it. And at that point in time, I had not seen any updated pictures. The only photos I had seen were of the original version that was produced by Sam on Dr. Lady's shelves, and it was a very old picture. So I was waiting for updated photos, but I went ahead and made an offer on it, and he pretty much accepted the offer. He got it down, showed me some photos, and at first I was just absolutely amazed, and I still am. I think the paint job is very good, the hair is very good, the hair work that Laura does is absolutely fantastic, and the paint work that David did is also pretty fantastic. Overall, this version is more accurate than any of the ones that Sam did, and that's not trying to speak poorly of his work, it's just trying to highlight how good Laura and David are at what they do. And yeah, David went ahead, pulled it down, got me some photos, had showed me those, and I was still interested in it. However, I did notice that it was the second version. So this is where some more history gets very interesting. On the original version, Sam himself had posted about this, and I believe I did find that post when I was looking for more information on these, but Dr. Lady had also mentioned to me that apparently during the process of applying the makeup appliances to the sculpture that Sam made, he apparently put on some of the lumps and bumps on Jason's head upside down. So they were really improperly placed on the original 1981 version. However, on the second one that he did, obviously, he fixed all those problems, and apparently this is corrected. Everything on this side is now accurate to the film. And also, his sculpting skills got much, much better since 1981, because Warrington Gillette's likeness kind of on this side of the face is much, much better. There's also a little bit of a difference with the shape of the mouth. This one's a bit more open. The other one was a bit more drawn closed. Overall, I like this version a lot more than the original, but they both have very, very awesome history. And as far as these, they are just as rare. I have only seen 3 copies total, including this one that I could find on any of the groups on Facebook, anywhere. Not saying that more of them aren't out there, but I know the couple of old school collectors I showed this particular copy to were also pretty blown away because these are incredibly, incredibly rare. However, there was yet another issue with this. These are not as old as the 1981 copies. However, being in the Mask Fanatic, this one did suffer a bit. In the back, it looks like the neck itself is just warped a bit. However, Dr. Lady told me there was like a little bit of rot setting into the back of the neck, and gravity was kind of doing its thing, so he had reinforced it with some tape, and it was pretty good. Well, whenever I received it, it actually is pretty split in some areas. The latex is starting to get weak, so it's not like it's just really, really breaking down and falling apart, but it definitely has surface cracks on the neck, mostly in the back, all over. A little bit in the front, and I did notice a little bit of like surface cracks here on the nose. Besides that, it's still in great shape. It's still very soft, but it's definitely starting to have some issues. So I am going to do what I can to save this piece, and what that's going to entail is foam filling. It is not an easy process. It's very tedious. It takes a long time, and I have never really tried it on a vintage mask like this. I have tried it on pieces that are modern day pulls, original sculpture, stuff like that, and when you have a mold for something, it's a lot easier to manage. But I guess I'm going to go ahead and try my hand at foam filling this. I do have the foam necessary to do so, and I did want to try and properly preserve it anyway. I didn't think that the damage was as bad as it really was until I got it in person. I mean, even with the damage, I'll put it to you this way. The few others that I have seen were in worse shape than this. And this one in particular is completely uncut. Those others had the nose holes, the mouth, the eyes cut. You know, I think most of the ones that Sam did came with fake eyes inserted. They weren't just painted eyes, at least from the ones I saw. And this one is obviously completely original, uncut. So this is the true original sculpture as he created it. And preserving this one, I feel like, would be very important. And it's also going to be a little bit easier due to the fact that it's not cut. But I'm going to have to carefully cover this up to make sure that no foam gets on the hair or gets on the mask itself, because it will pull the paint off and cause other issues. I also just now had my camera overheat for a second and saw that I've been standing behind the mask from the point of view of the camera this entire time. So apologies about that, guys, but this piece really should be front and center because this is still an incredibly rare piece. It's still one of the hardest to find pieces in the Jason collecting world. And as far as having that lineage and having that history, it's very cool. I'm going to see if I can't pull back the hair gently here on this side just to kind of show you some of the details, because I've only seen a video on one of these before on YouTube, and the guy did a pretty good job, but it's obviously an older video, not as high a quality, stuff like that. Very, very good look at one of these for you Jason fans out there. I hope you guys enjoy it. Hopefully I can very, very carefully save this piece and foam fill it properly, because I want it to be around for many years to come, and I want this to be a piece that not just myself, but many other Jason fans like you all can enjoy if you come check it out in person. And no, unfortunately, I don't have a bag for his head, but I don't intend to put one on his head. Maybe if someone makes me one, I'll display it next to it, or I may just go ahead and take the time to make one myself. It shouldn't be too difficult. just to kind of have that history. But just like with these other Jason lineage pieces, if it actually does have a face showing, I'll probably display the hockey mask or the bag or whatever it is next to it so you can actually appreciate that original sculpture. And before we go, I also want to give a quick shout out to Rudy at Crimson Ghost Mask Room, also Rudy's World over on YouTube, for helping me obtain this piece. I did go ahead and sell that very mysterious Killer Clown's head to Rudy. He was interested in it from the time that I got it, and I was back and forth on whether or not I wanted to part with it. This piece became available, and at the time that I made the offer, I thought it was the very original 1981 version, which is even older and rarer than this. And I just didn't want to pass up on it, so I went ahead and offered Rudy that head. He did go ahead and pick it up, and he helped me get this piece, which I greatly appreciate. And also, yet again, if you guys have never seen Rudy's collection, go check out his YouTube channel, go check out his Instagram. He has an insane collection. I know the clown will have a very good home there, and also, we did make the agreement that if he ever decides to part with it, he will sell it back to me, so I know there's still a chance in the future I could get it back. Regardless, maybe Rudy will be able to find out a bit more history on it than I could. I looked everywhere for information, really not too much more turned up, but Rudy has a lot of connections in the mask world, and maybe, just maybe, he can find out more than I could. He will be doing a video on the clown head when it arrives, so if you guys want to check that out, be sure to check that out over on his channel. But in the meanwhile, he has a ton of awesome Halloween content to check out, and don't forget Dr. Lady, aka Mask Wizard, over on YouTube for some other really amazing Halloween mask content. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I love you all. I'll be sure to give you some nice close-ups of this legendary, incredibly rare, super cool Friday the 13th Part 2 Jason Voorhees bust. Bye!